So we continue with economics, A level, size of business. Today we're going to go into constraints on business growth. When we talk about business growth, we're simply talking about business expansion. And when it comes to constraints, it's simply talking about the barriers that hinder the growth of a business. So those things that bring about the inability of firms to be able to grow. That's what constraint is about. So here I wrote constraint on business growth. These are barriers that hinder the expansion of firms. They are as follows. One, the size of the market. When we talk about the size of the market, we're simply talking about how big or small the market is. So some markets are too small that if you expand as a business, you will not you will not be successful. You will fail. So there's no point expanding in such markets. So I wrote how big or small a market is can be hindrance, can be a hindrance. Some markets are relatively small, which means firms in such markets may fail if they consider expanding in such a market. So you don't have to expand in that market because the market is relatively small. So what's the point about expanding? You don't expand. If you do expand, then you'll be running at a loss. That was one of the hindrance to growth. The second one, access to finance. When we talk about finance, finance is disbursement of fund from the surplus unit of the economy to the deficit unit of the economy. So we call it finance because it allows us to move cash from where we have it in abundance, where it is surplus, to a place that it is really needed. That place that is really needed is the deficit unit. So we are able to move it there. That's what finance is about. So here I wrote, finance is the disbursement of funds from the surplus unit of the economy to the deficit unit of the economy. To expand, firms need access to finance. So firms may use retained profit, loans, or sale of shares to finance their expansion. Without the accessibility to all mentioned above, a firm might not have the opportunity to grow. So if a firm has to grow, a firm might need to use its own, it might be internal through its own retained profit, or probably sell shares to the public that by issuing an IPO, initial public offering, or take a loan from the bank. But getting a loan from the bank means the banks are willing to give you. If they are not willing to lend you, then you won't be able to get it. So some businesses are unable to grow because they lack finance, either through retained profits or loans or being able to sell their shares. Is it clear? Any questions about that? So the third constraint on growth is the owner's objective. Objectives are what you are aiming at to achieve at a period of time. So expansion might also depend on what owners want to achieve. Some owners may not want to put extra work or extra risk as they are satisfied with the profits they are currently making. As a result, may not wish to expand. Some owners, they are okay with profit satisficing. The profit they make is good enough for their lifestyle. So they don't want to take further risk. They don't want to stress further. So the profit they are making is enough for them. So they won't think about expanding. So their objective is not to expand, but rather to stay with the profit, to stick with the profit they are making already.
What if over time you can't? What if over time, if you don't risk it, you're gonna make less profit?
Yeah, well, then that will change their objective. But the present situation is their aim is to continue the way they are. But maybe with time, that might change. And if that changes, it changes their objective. So the point is all about the objective of the owners. So if time changes, if things changes, their objective will definitely change. That's why we call it objective of the owners. I think it's clear. Then the next one is regulations. When we talk about regulations, we're talking about rules, government regulations. Most of the time, firms might really want to expand, and they can do it without government interference. But as soon as there's government involvement, and most of the time, we cannot run a business without government being notified about it. So that means government check and balance situations about expansion. So here I wrote, firms may be able to expand without government interference, but in the present day, most expansions are regulated as government wants to ensure that expansion through especially integration are not designed to exploit customers or result into market failure. So government wants to be sure that all expansion are for a good cause. If not, they will not fly. And if they don't fly, it's an hindrance. It's clear.
Yeah.
Any question about that?
Yeah.
So that takes us to reasons some firms tend to remain small and others grow. Are you there?
Mhm.
So I wrote, reasons businesses want to continue to grow in size. Number one, a larger firm may be able to exploit economies of scale. Expansion may allow bulk purchases, purchasing economies of scale, accessibility to finance, financial economies of scale. Firms might wish to expand because they will be able to exploit economies of scale. How are they going to be able to exploit economies of scale? They're going to be able to exploit economies of scale because expansion brings about operating on a larger scale. So if you're operating on a larger scale, it simply means you could buy in bulk. And when you buy in bulk, you have discounts. That reduces your cost of production. Because you are large, banks, financial institutions might be able to give you loans because they will believe you are credit worthy. And that gives you access to finance. That's financial economies of scale. Do you understand?
Mhm.
So one of the reasons why firms want to become bigger is because of economies of scale. The second one, a larger firm may have more control over its market as reduction in competition increases the price setting power of a large firm. With merger, it reduces competition in the market, yes or no? And if competition reduces in the market, firms becomes price maker instead of price taker. That is the point there. Is it clear? The third one, a larger company may be able to reduce risk. This is as a result of diversification. A conglomerate may be able to exploit different economic situations. Expansion can also be in form of conglomerate, yes or no? Conglomerate means you are able to diversify your risk. You are able to spread your risk from one sector to another. So with different economic situations, there will be a time that, oh, the education sector is going down. You use the health sector that you have invested in to keep up with that. There will be a time the health sector will be going down. You use the banking sector that you have invested in to keep up with it, to keep the finance flowing. So that's another reason why a large business may want to seek expansion. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And the fourth reason is for them to be able to justify large amount of money they pay to their managers or directors. Most of the time, large firms are being criticized of paying large amounts because government is unable to regulate what they pay. There's no price regulation when it comes to salary.
Why is that a problem?
It's a problem because larger firms tend to attract the most skilled workers, leaving behind unskilled workers for smaller firms. And that becomes an hindrance for them to grow. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So where there is divorce of ownership from control, a larger company may justify higher salaries and bonuses to directors and managers since they are the ones running the firm. So there is divorce of ownership, which simply means the owners are not in charge of decision making. So if government is asking them, why are you paying so much to your directors? They will tell them they are the ones in charge of the company. So whatever they do is for the company. We are not in charge. So they make decisions and whatever they get, they're not even returning it to us. They're putting it back to the business.
Mhm.
Is it clear?
Mhm.
So these are the reasons why a large business might seek to continue to further grow. Now, that takes us to reasons other businesses remain small. One, the owners want the business to remain small and do not want to have the increased risk from operating a larger firm. Owners might just don't want to take further risk. They don't want that stress because the larger the risk, the larger the profit, but the bigger the business too. So they don't want this large of a thing to come into their way. So they don't want to take it. They don't want to risk it. So they leave it the way it is. Two, the firm may be operating in a niche market, which means the demand may be too low. As a result, expansion becomes a waste of scarce resources. A firm might remain small. A firm might remain small because the resources are too low. A firm might remain small because it's operating in a niche market. You know what a niche market is? A market for a specific group of customers. So if we are selling for a specific group of customers, What's the point of expanding? If you are expanding, you are wasting with scarce resources already. I think it's clear. Is it clear, please?
Yes.
And the next one, the firm may offer personalized service, which means loyal customers know the owners. Such customers may choose to leave if the business expands. When you offer personalized service, it simply means your loyal customers know you and you know them. But as soon as your business grows or expands, they won't be able to know you anymore. You won't be able to relate as you used to. Then they might choose to leave. So a business might not want to grow so that not to lose its loyal customers. Clear?
Mm.
And the last reason why a business might choose to remain small is that the owners lack the expertise and finance to grow. So they're happy with what they have. Is it clear?
Yes.
Any question about that?
Mm.
So that takes us to the impacts. Are you there?
Yes.
So that takes us to the impact of growth of firms on businesses, workers, and consumers. So we're going to start with businesses. Are you there?
Yes.
Businesses, they are likely to benefit from expansion if economies of scale leads to greater efficiency. This will bring about a rise in profit and may be able to survive in a highly competitive market. However, if the expansion leads to these economies of scale and inefficiency, it will affect their profits. One of the impacts of growth to business on firms is that if the expansion brings about economies of scale, and the economies of scale leads to greater efficiency, it means they'll be able to reduce their cost, they'll be able to lower their price, they'll be able to attract more customers and make more profit. So that is the benefit of expansion or growth to a business. However, if the expansion leads to inefficiency, their profit is likely to fall. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
On workers, some workers, are you there?
Yes.
Some workers may benefit and others may lose out. During expansion, some workers might gain promotion while others might lose their jobs. For example, during merger, a company realizes that it needs just one financial director. It is therefore inevitable that one of the financial directors will be promoted and the other will be made redundant. So if the expansion is more successful, higher wages might be paid. So if firm A and firm B is merging, firm A has a financial director and firm B also has a financial director. It definitely shows that we're going to need just one financial director. So that means one financial director will be surplus to requirements, will be made redundant. He or she loses his job. His or her job.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yes.
So that, and if the merger becomes successful, higher wages are expected to be paid to workers. Clear?
Yes.
Then to consumers, what's the benefit of expansion to consumers? Consumers may benefit or lose out following merger. Consumers will gain if the merged companies become more efficient, as they will reduce their cost of production, bringing about lower prices and improved quality products. So if expansion leads to efficiency, prices are expected to fall, quality is expected to improve. Customers will buy quality product at affordable prices. Consumers are winning. However, if the merger reduces the number of firms on the market, competition reduces, yes or no?
Yes.
Less choices are left for consumers, and that will bring about higher prices. They lose out. Clear?
Yes.
Any question about that?
No, sir.
So that takes us to what we call the merger. There's merger, which means the combination of the coming together of two or more firms to become a single firm. Then there's demerger. When we talk about demerger, it simply means we are splitting firms to become a different entity to start operating on their own. That is what demerger is about. Are you with me?
Yes.
So what reasons for demerger? What is demerger? I wrote. It is when the company splits off one or more divisions to operate independently or be sold off. So there's a large firm, now splitted to operate as a single firm. So that is what demerger is about. So they want to start operating independently. So what are the reasons why we could have demerger? The first one is lack of synergy. Before we go into lack of synergy, what is synergy itself? Synergy simply talks about the coming together of different substances that they're going to be able to provide better. They will be more efficient and better when they are together than working independently. Then you sum them together. The point is this: synergy simply means the combination of the parts together will be better and more efficient than the sum of different parts coming together. So if we work as a whole, it is better, it is faster, it is better and more efficient than we working as different parts and coming together, summing us together to become a whole. A whole. Do you get it or not?
Yes.
A, B, C, D, E, working together as a whole is faster and better. That is synergy. But if A works separately, B works separately, C works separately, coming together, now we add all the efforts together, it is not going to be bigger and better than we working together as a whole. That is what synergy is about. Do you get synergy here? So one of the reasons why firms might choose to split is because the management figure out that there's no synergy in that organization. So here I wrote, one of the reasons is for demerger is lack of synergies. So what is synergy? Synergy is the interaction of two or more substances to produce a combined effect rather than the sum of their separate effects. So when we work together, we become better and faster than we working separately to sum it together. So that is what synergy is. So one of the reasons why we have demerger is because there's lack of synergy in the organization. So management figure out that some firms are not doing as the rest. Then they have to separate them to know who is not doing well and who is doing well. That is demerger. Do you get it?
Yes.
So that is lack of synergy. Demerger may occur if management feel that there is no synergies between the parts of the firm. Without synergy, some parts will have subsidized for others. So without synergy, it simply means some will be doing more and they will be subsidizing for those that are doing less, which is not good. That's a waste of resources. Do you understand?
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons for demerger. The second one is the value. And when we talk about value, we're talking about the worth of the firm. Sometimes it's a whole business, but parts of the whole might be more valued than the whole itself. So you might have company A, but inside company A, there's a department in company A that taking it away is more valuable than the whole of the department. That might bring about demerger. So here I wrote the value. The price of the demerged firms might be higher than the price of the single larger firm. For example, a firm may be valued for $300 million on the stock exchange market. But if it splits into two, the new firms might be valued 150 million and 250 million respectively. So you see, if they are valued separately, they're going to worth 400 million. But if they are valued together, they're going to worth 300 million. So that means there's a firm that is worth more than others. How do they value these things? The valuation is done based on the potential to growth, the performance of the business. So some departments might be doing well than others. So staying with them reduces their value. As a result, they want to get separated from the whole. So there's a whole. Separating from the whole is what we call demerger. I think demerger is clear here.
Yes.
Great. And the third reasons why we could have demerger is the focused companies. And when we talk about focused companies, we're simply talking about management understanding that there are departments in the whole that can be more profitable than others. As a result, they do away with those ones that they feel that they are not going to be there. They don't have the tendency to be successful. So that also brings about demerger. So they sell them off to leave behind those ones that they believe will be more profitable. That's focused company. Do you get it?
Yes.
So here I wrote, demerger may also occur if management concentrates on the parts of the firm that is likely to be successful than others. They tend to sell off those they think will not be a success. Is it clear?
Yes.
So what are the impacts of demerger? So the impact of demerger will be on businesses, consumers, and workers. So we're going to start with businesses. For businesses, I wrote, firms will benefit from demerger if the increased specialization leads to greater efficiency, as this allows them to survive competition and make more profit. However, if it leads to inefficiency, this is likely to reduce profit. When there is demerger, that means you are separating a part from the whole, right? So it means if you are separating the part from the whole, the part becomes specialized, yes or no? So this increases specialization. So if this increase specialization brings about efficiency, then profit is expected to rise for the demerged firm. However, if the increased specialization brings about inefficiency, the profit is expected to be low or fall. That is for a business. Is it clear?
Yes.
On workers, they may benefit or lose out during the merger. Some managers may gain promotion to oversee the process, and if the demerger brings about better efficiency, then some workers are likely to lose their job. Look at it. With demerger, some managers might be promoted to oversee the demerge process. And if the demerger becomes a success, those firms that are being separated will lose their workers because now they can figure out that, oh, these firms are lagging behind. So workers in this department are the ones that are giving the business the problem. So they might lose their job. Does it make sense now?
Yes.
Good. So that's about workers. Then consumers. Consumers will gain if the demerged firm become more efficient. They'll be able to cut costs. They'll be able to provide more products, better services, more choices for consumers. So that makes them to gain. However, consumers will lose out if the demerged firms become more focused on increasing profit. Because if they focus more on increasing profit, that means they have to either increase their prices or reduce their product ranges. So if they reduce their product ranges, if they reduce it, that means fewer choices are left for consumers. There will be scarcity. If they increase their prices become not affordable for consumers. So consumers will lose out. Do you understand? Because the merger will bring about specialization. And if there's specialization, that means they become inevitable. So this might bring about consumers losing out. Is it clear?
Yes.
Any question about the impact of the mergers?
No.
So this ends the size of businesses. Thank you. That takes us to what we call